Stop overpaying on your home loan. We understand that managing your finances can be overwhelming, especially as interest rates continue to rise. With access to 70 plus lenders, our team of specialised brokers will find the best rates for your specific needs. Count on us to secure a lower rate swiftly, giving you the confidence you deserve. Book an appointment with one of our experts today to protect your financial well-being and secure your future. Call us now at 02 8866 2444 or visit our website at finny.com.au.
This is a Momentum Media production.
The SMSF Adviser Show. Your expert insights into the biggest themes shaping the SMSF advice industry.
Hello and welcome to the SMSF Adviser Show. I'm your host, Keith Ford, and I'm joined by my co-host, Aaron Dunn. Hi, Aaron. How are you?
A little bit exhausted, Keith. So 1st of July, Happy New Year, I guess, first of all, to our listeners out there. Yeah, it's a big switch over in our organisation. So 1 July, that's in a lot of instances because of government change. So, minimum pension changes and all the things that we talk about in this show. But yeah, as is always the way, I guess, there's plenty that is making news. So, of course, in our first segment, we talk about that. So I might hand over to you as we discuss, I guess, what is making news and what's driving traffic on SMSF Adviser.
Absolutely, Aaron. There's certainly been some interesting things happening over the last 2 weeks. Not all of it what advisors would consider positive. The first of which would be the increase to the ASIC levy, which has caused a bit of outrage, I think would probably be a good term. Maybe
that's
some
probably
concern.
An understatement.
Concern, definitely an understatement. So the idea there is essentially that the freeze has been lifted that was instituted by Josh Frydenberg when he was treasurer. Yep. And so now each licensee has a minimum levy of $1,500, and then each advisor has to pay $3,217 for ASIC to recoup the costs of regulating licensees. What are your thoughts, Aaron?
Oh, well, quite clearly, there's a fairly big shock to the industry. The jump is significant. Of course, the acknowledgement there would be, well, there's been a freeze and naturally there's been fairly substantial inflationary increases in that. But I think, those type of jumps are going to have a pretty dramatic impact on practices and advisors in this industry. And in a period of time where we've had recognition of advisors or frustration of advisors and advisors leaving the industry for a whole range of reasons, we don't need something else to add on top of this that is going to, put in jeopardy the number of advisors that sit in the industry. And so I think, there are some real problems in here around just the level of increase. And therefore, I think the lack of clarity and transparency and stuff around what we're seeing, and therefore the fact that we just accept this and move on, I think it would be really, really frustrating for those advising in the industry.
Absolutely. And also on top of that is that as there are fewer advisors in the industry, the proportion that each advisor has to pay actually goes up. So it's kind of getting hit from both ends a bit.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah. And ultimately, those that are left are here to carry the can, and they have had to carry the can in many aspects, the way in which they have to comply with the law in respect to many things that have happened in the past that were of no fault of their own either. So it's just one other example of where those that are left to carry those costs. And when we think about the affordability of advice, this is only going to add to that. So, we've got the QAR stuff that is trying to appease some of the process and the costs that sits within this. Yet on the flip side, we've got, other costs that are then going to come straight back in to those that are going to ultimately be passed on to consumers as well.
Absolutely, because the whole idea with the QAR is meant to reduce the cost of advice, make it a bit more affordable. And, things like this don't really lend themselves to that. An extra almost, $3,200 a year. It's a bigger impost, an increase of more than $2,000 each advisor as well, which is pretty big. I guess the next piece of news, also one that I know the SMSF Association found concerning, was the ATO's draft ruling surrounding non-arm's length income and how it relates to capital gains tax, which was the TD 2023/D1, a nice catchy name there.
Yeah, absolutely. So we've naturally seen the evolution of the non-arm's length income rules go on since sort of 2016. And of course, we've spoken about in probably the whole first half of this calendar year, the non-arm's length rules. And what we're looking at within this determination is really the interaction specifically to the capital gains tax provisions and where the non-arm's length income rules would in essence override those CGT provisions, and therefore we'd have a 45% tax rate. Now, the draft determination, whilst it's great that we're getting some clarification around how these rules intend to apply, there is concern that the views expressed are somewhat different to how we would interpret those rules would actually work. And the example is really that has been raised through the SMSF Association is where the fact that there was a view that the capital gain where it was tainted that particular asset and that particular asset only, whereas the ruling seems to infer that it actually taints capital gains as a concept, which therefore taints potential other gains that might arise in that year. So we are hoping through this period of feedback, which in essence takes us through until the 28th of July, or whatever it was, I think is the consultation. I believe so, period.
Yeah, 28th of July.
That in essence we would come up with some sort of resolution or expectation from the Commissioner to say, well, yes, actually we agree with some of the concerns that you raised, or no, this is an actual change in approach, and therefore the industry would obviously need to adjust its thinking along those lines as well.
Yeah, it certainly sounds like it would have pretty large ramifications of changing it from a single asset being affected to now basically any capital gains would be.
Yeah, and therefore obviously subject to the quantum of assets that get sold in a particular year, that could have very significant outcomes. And so there is a whole section within the non-arm's length ruling that the ATO issued that talks to some of the CGT interactions in that law companion ruling. And this is really expanding out on some of that. But the views that have been expressed here don't align with what we have thought was common practice within the industry. And therefore, getting that clarification from the ATO is going to be important. And whether we then see a change in the finalisation of that determination, we'll have to just wait and see.
Yeah. And there's been some other change. We had an article on SMSF Adviser about court rulings that essentially mean that lost trust deeds are just no longer set in stone, is what the headline was. Would you be able to talk a bit more generally about how these court rulings have kind of been affecting these issues?
Yes. I guess the best example I can give you is think of funds that have been around for 15, 20, 30. I think the earliest self-managed super fund I've ever interacted with wasn't a self-managed fund. It went back to 1967 or 1969.
Oof.
Right. So if you think about the age of those documents, if you go and ask the client where they might have changed advisors, partners have retired in firms and whatever, and you go, well, where's the original trust deed? They might just shrug their shoulders. So part of what happens in a lot of these cases that we're seeing is if you can't find either the original deed or maybe deeds throughout the journey, we need to try and piece together what is happening and potentially may need to go to court to decide whether this fund is actually on foot or not, and therefore who can make decisions in this process as well. And the case that you're referring to, I guess, in the article is highlighting these issues, because this is not an issue that is just solely related to self-managed super funds. It relates to trust law more generally. So we're looking at family trusts and unit trusts and other things as well, because our deed is our governing rules that tell us what we can do and who can do what in decision making, which when it comes to self-managed super funds is vital, because we then have instructions to pay out superannuation death benefits. And when we get to blended families and the like, you can have very different outcomes based upon whether there's a binding instruction or whether the person is maybe not bound to actually pay in accordance with that decision. And of course, we've seen a whole range of those going all the way up to the Hill and Zuda High Court decision with that. So I guess the rule of thumb is one, don't lose them, or at least as a professional, make sure you've got those online. And I always say to people, make sure that you are also not waiting for this to happen, but be checking with your funds right now and try and work out whether there is any defect in the chain of documents and try and rectify these things whilst people are alive, as opposed to after people are gone, because in many instances, you're not going to be able to go through that approach. And like I said, there have been cases where fund trustees have gone to the Supreme Court to then try and work out whether the trustee is the current trustee, whether they've been appropriately appointed, and therefore whether that individual that is assumed to be in that role right now actually has any power to be able to make those decisions. And it can be very expensive to have to go through that process right now. It'll probably be even more expensive if you're having to defend that position in court at a future point in time over, blended family death benefit conflicts and the like.
I would say if you can avoid going to the Supreme Court in any way, you should probably try and do it.
Yeah, 100%.
As a general rule. Rule. Yeah.
Correct.
So we've got one more that we wanted to touch on, which was the ATO penalty fee increases, which I think that's kicking off as of 3 days ago, or
yeah, correct.
1st of July.
1st of July. Yeah. So the real interesting thing here is we've seen an announcement in the budget a couple of years ago where the former levy, which was $222, was going to increase to $275 on the 1st of January 2023. So we saw a $222 to $275 penalty unit change. But when that law came through and took effect, there was an indexed increase also then scheduled for the 1st of July. So we've actually got two increases in the penalty unit, moving from $222 to now $313 within a 12-month period. So again, like I said, quite significant in the context of our ATO penalty. That then becomes important for things like trustee penalties. So if you have a client that fails to do something, whether it's a failure to lodge, then the ATO can apply those penalty units. If we have the administrative penalties that apply to self-managed super funds, so something that was a 10 penalty unit or a 20 penalty unit, we're moving from $275 to $313. So there's a much larger impost, so 40% or more in 12 months, that really, when we think about it in the SMSF context, those admin penalties, if the ATO issue them, they come out of the trustee's pocket, like as in not wearing the trustee hat. The individual themselves has to pay that. And if you've ended up with a 20, I'm just going to get my calculator out here, but if you ended up with a
$1,820 is the increase from what the increase from
so you're now
July last year to July this year. Yeah.
So you're looking at $6,200 for a penalty on 20 penalty units compared to what it was previously. And like I said, if you've got a mum and a dad in that fund with individual trustees, well, you're now at $12,500 that have come out of their own personal bank account for a breach with the SIS compliance requirements, whatever that penalty may have been.
Not a small amount, amount at all.
Absolutely not. So, so it is just an important note to say that we have seen that fairly sizable increase over a short 12-month period of time.
Absolutely. And on that important but very cheery note,
yes,
we'll take a quick break. And after the break, we bring you an episode of the IFA podcast, hosted by my colleague Maja, who's joined by Adele Martin, the founder of My Money Buddy and the Saving Squad podcast. The pair dissect the government's response to the Quality Advice Review, and we felt it would be valuable to the SMSF Adviser audience as well. Hope you enjoy it.
So, today I'm going to be talking about the millennial advantage. I'm going to share with you how to engage and retain millennial clients. But before we do that, let's dive into how do you even know if you are a millennial? Now, millennials are actually born between 1981 and 96, which makes them late 20s and early 40s. So if you're early 40s like me, anyone early 40s like me, we're geriatric millennials. That's what I love to hear. I was a geriatric pregnancy and now I'm a geriatric millennial, and soon I'll just be geriatric. So that's who we're dealing with. Now, millennials, according to the last census that were done, millennials now outnumber baby boomers. And so we are set to have the biggest, wealth transfer in history happening with $3.5 trillion. So I really don't think there's ever been a better time to be a financial advisor. But the problem is a lot of advisors don't know how to engage millennials. And there's a few myths that they have about millennials. So they think that they don't want to pay much for advice. They only want to pay a few $100s. They also think that they don't want ongoing advice. They just want this once-off advice. Now, the problem with this as a business model, that's a hard business model because you have to have volume and be finding clients and marketing all the time. And so that makes it not attractive to work with them. The other thing is advisors think, well, they're just going to get this money, pay off their inheritance and pay off their house. So what can I really even do to help them? But the reality is if you have a retiree business and you don't have a millennial offering, your business is likely going backwards. I spoke to an advisor a few weeks ago and he told me that, over the last 12 months, I think it was less than 12 months, he had 7 clients pass away, which is very sad because we all know that we have those deep personal relationships with our clients. But it also meant for him, he had about $40,000 worth of revenue that walked out the door as well. So here he was trying to market and find new clients, but that was a bit like trying to pour water into a bucket with holes in it. What we want instead is we want to have a millennial offering. We want to have an offering so that our business continues to grow. And we want that offering to be something that the millennials can easily pay, $5,000, $7,000 a year, that they're getting epic results, but it also keeps you free as an advisor as well. And we also want to be able to work with them long term because we know that as an advisor, and our role is not the SOA. As soon as the SOA is printed, it's out of date. And so we want our role to be more of that GPS in their life. And so that's what I'm here to talk to you about today. Now, I've only got 30 minutes, but in 30 minutes, I'm going to share everything I can to help you create a compelling millennial offering. Now, I only got 30 minutes, but lucky for you guys, and some of you know me, I talk fast. So we're going to be able to fit a lot in. But if at the end of 30 minutes, I'm going to invite you to some more resources because I only got 30 minutes, I can't jam everything in. So I'm going to give you access to some more resources to help you accelerate your business even more. But let's get into it. Let's get into the 5 keys to make millennial advice successful. The first thing is we need to date them first. Now, so often advisors go with the, hey, let's book a meeting. Let's get on the phone. The only call to action with any of their marketing that they do is let's get on the phone. Now, that is way too big a first step. That's like getting married on the first date. The millennials thinking, what is wrong with this person? They're thinking they're just trying to sell me. Millennials are very skeptical. So we need to date them first and take it slow. So how do we do that? Well, the first thing is you have your marketing. Now, I'm a big fan of scaled marketing, which is you do something, get in front of a whole heap of people at once. And I'm not a big fan of, I know paid ads work for some. I'm not a big fan of paid ads. I teach all organic strategies like PR, social media, centers of influence. So we have all those strategies going. And then instead of that call to action being book an appointment, it is to opt in for something, our lead magnet. Now that lead magnet should relate to your ideal clients. So some of the best lead magnets that I've had for my millennial clients has been around, here's a script to negotiate a pay rise. Love that. People use that script and got $10,000 to $20,000 pay rises. The ones to negotiate your bills, that has been very popular. But think about your ideal client. It could be that, how to reduce your tax, legally if you're a business owner. Think about your ideal client and what would, be valuable to them. Because this is a chance for you to build up that know, like, and trust factor. Because then what happens is they go into a nurture sequence. So that nurture sequence could be generally via email. And email, I know it seems not cool, but it's one of the best returns on investment of any marketing. So email does still work. So they would go into some sort of email nurture sequence generally, but it's a way to build up that trust. And so I might be sharing, client case studies. I might be sharing, a podcast that I've been featured on. And so by the time they actually get to becoming clients, and we have a 2-part sales process, a 15-minute auditioning call where we're make sure they're the right fit, and then a 45-minute by the time they get to that, they feel like they already know me. They've seen me on video, they've watched something of mine, they've read something. And so by the time we get to this meeting, sales are a lot easier. It's not the first time that they're hearing, oh, you guys work with people long term. They already know that because they've been seeded throughout all of the nurture. They've been shared case studies of clients that have worked with us for 6 years. And so this is how we nurture our millennial clients. Now, what I love about this is you're looking at it thinking, oh, it's a lot of work. But once you do it once and build it, I'm a big fan of this scale. It's just automatic. Like people are just getting in my calendar and I don't even know where they came from. Like I do know where they come from because they're tagged, but I haven't had to pick up the phone, talk to them, get them in. This is on autopilot. So you work hard once, set it up, and then the system works for you and books the appointments in. So yeah, first rule is make sure we date them first. The second rule is we need to remove the friction. So when you think about millennials are used to things fast. They're used to watching Netflix and downloading and watching everything at once. They're used to being able to, at a touch of a button, have Uber. So they're used to things being fast. Now they also are really time poor. They're working usually long hours. They've got children doing, 50,000 sports and activities. They've got elderly parents. They don't have time. So we need to think about it from their point of view and remove the friction in the advice process. So the first thing is, I think, having an online calendar rather than going back and forth on email. We need to make it easy for them to be able to book meetings with us because it'll get to 7:30, 8 o'clock at night. The kids will be in bed. Be like, they email you back and now that time's missing. So the other thing I like about online calendar, who here works with people in other states, people in different time zones, clients in different time zones? Yeah, this works beautifully because when they click on the link, it shows in their time zone. So you don't need to worry about converting time zones and who's 2 hours. It just shows in their time zone and it goes into their calendar at the right time. Of course, it can also do a lot of the automations, reminders for text, do some of that nurture. We share our why video beforehand. So there's heaps of stuff that we can do, automation with the online calendar as well. The other thing is we need to communicate with millennials how they want to be communicated with. And they like chat or text. They do not like phone calls. In fact, I think millennials would rather die than actually pick up a phone call. They don't want to talk to people. They want chat or text. Or online portal could be a great tool as well to be able to communicate. And we're going to be talking about that later today. We're going to be talking about client portals and how we can use it. And one way is to communicate with our clients. Let's also talk about payments. Millennials are used to paying for things fast. They're used to click of a button. And so, think about our payment process. How can we make that easier? Could we have, so I use Stripe with my financial planning clients. We can just pick up, they can pay on a website. They don't need to create an invoice, manually send it to them, bank transfer. It can be all automatic. They are also used to afterpay. So with our advice fees, rather than say they can't afford it, could we offer a payment plan where they pay it off over a few months because they are the afterpay generation? And also with the fact find. So I'm not a big fan of collecting a whole heap of data before they become clients. So for me, that's too much friction for them. And it's also a lot of, especially with all the cyber stuff, and now they're very wary about clicking on anything and putting in a lot of personal information. So I think about it from their point of view. I remove the friction and we don't collect very, very much information at all until they become a client. So there are 4 things that we can do to remove the friction in the advice process. The other thing that we need to do is we need to create a pathway for them. So this is one of the things that I realized. So I've been in advice for 20-something years. Half that time was with retirees. And then I decided one day I really wanted to work with younger clients and I just, without much of a plan, dive in and started working with younger clients. And what I noticed was it was very different. My retirees, apart from having all the time in the world, they just, love to come in and have a chat, and they wanted to be on the phone to you. Apart from all the other differences, I also noticed that there was the process was more about taking a fear away for them. They had an immediate need and a fear. Whereas with my millennial clients, it was much more about creating the future and getting them excited for something. So it was very different. And if you're working with someone, they will stop working with you long term when they run out of future. And so we have to make sure we are always painting the future. And so one that we've done that is to create a pathway. So I talk about what we're working towards. So with these clients, we're working towards, financial independence. I talk about the fact, what does financial independence mean to them? Most of these guys don't care about retirement. It's way too long off. So I talk about, financial independence just means choices around how much you work, where you work, what does that look like for you? So we talk about financial independence, and then we create a pathway. Now, I've put this into words that they can understand by talking about, we have a high school level of stuff, and then we have, a PhD. But you could do this with anything. You could do this with black belts with karate colors. You could do it with all sorts of ways. But I've talked about, so there's some high school, some foundation stuff that we need to tick off. And we're actually ticking this off with them. And they're seeing all of this pathway, so they know what they're working towards. Then we sort of have our, a bachelor money stuff, money plan that we need to tick off. And then we have our PhD or our masters. And we talk about things like, legacy and contribution. And so this is what they're working towards and they're ticking off. So this is what keeps them engaged and to want to work with you long term, because they can see the whole pathway. Now, the fourth thing we need to do is we need to create a really great client experience for them. So millennials will pay for experience. I always think that you could go to Kmart and buy a $10 teddy bear, but you can also go to Build-A-Bear and create a custom bear that's, over $100. You can pick the eye color of the whole thing. It's the same thing. The difference is the experience. So how can we bring that into financial planning and create a better experience? And so there's a few things that we can do. Firstly, think about our initial client engagement. So think about the FSG. Most advisors, most of the time, from their point of view, they're already a little bit apprehensive. Talking about money is easy for us to do, but for most people, it's very intimidating. They feel like they're being judged. There's lots of fear and anxiety around it. That they should be doing better. They should be able to do it themselves. And so there's sometimes a lot of fear and anxiety. And then the first thing we do is, once they've taken that initial step, is we send them this legal document, this FSG. And the FSG is 10 or 15 pages. It tells them what to do if there's a complaint, tells them what your maximum fee is. It's freaked them out even more. And so often our client experience is done with a compliance lens. The legal people and compliance have got together and they've designed it. We haven't filtered it for the actual end person and thought about it from their point of view. So one of the things that I recommend, instead of just sending the FSG, because I know we do have to do that, let's send our why video with it. So many of you got into financial planning because you love helping people. It's the people side. It's why you didn't become an accountant. It's why you're an advisor. And so sharing that why, sharing some of the clients that you've helped, that can be a great video to accompany it, along with having to, put the FSG in. And what I love about video, it builds up that trust. They feel like they already, know you. The second thing that we can do to really improve the client experience is we can look at the onboarding process. So most of our onboarding process is us repeating ourselves. So I don't know about you, but if I have to explain trauma insurance on a Thursday afternoon, chances are the clients aren't getting my best version. They're not getting my 9 o'clock Tuesday version. They're getting my Thursday afternoon version. So it's not always the best experience for them. And a lot of repetition, for us gets draining. It also means the meetings go for way longer than they have to. We're putting a whole heap of information in and the clients are like, I don't even know what's going on. I don't really understand it. I'm really confused. And so one way we can do it is to have a better onboarding process. So a client, you welcome a client, they get a welcome video from you explaining exactly what's going to happen. They then get a goals video and a little goals activity that they can do. So I have a little activity I get them to do around values and goals and making sure they're aligned and ranking them. So I get them to watch my video on goals and then do a little activity. Now, we do that also with risk profiling. You can do it with creating a spending plan. So we can do it explaining insurance. There's a little activity that they do, watch an activity they do before the meeting. It means that they come to the meeting much more informed. They understand stuff better. The meetings aren't rushed. And also it means that they're not just waiting for the SOA. They're not just waiting for that. They know that it's, much more than that. And they can watch it when it's convenient. They can watch it at nighttime. They can, and so for me, having a better onboarding videos and experience, it also improves it as well. And there's also some ways we can improve our ongoing service as well. Because I believe that they're paying you, especially if they're paying you a monthly fee, they shouldn't just see you once a year and be paying you a fee every month. Millennials are going to start to question that. I'm going to see you once a year. Why am I paying you every month? And so we have to make sure we keep connected with them throughout the year. The problem is we don't want more meetings. For starters, they're time poor, but also we're time poor as advisors. And apart from that, more meetings can just be a bit boring. It's like playing the one note on the piano over and over. It gets a bit boring, repetitive. So more meetings aren't the answer. But there's two strategies that I like to do to stay connected with them. One is a 7-second check-in. So you can do this via text. I like to do it via video and send it via text. So I would say something in the video like, hey, I just record on my phone, nothing fancy. Hey, it's Adele here. Just checking in, see what's new with you. Hope you're winning. Now, I don't say the client's name. That way I can reuse this for other clients as well. So again, big fan of scale, using something once, using it multiple times. We can also have that so it's automated. So we can automatically go out 3 months after the last meeting, we can automatically send that. So we can have an automation process with our CRMs as well. Now, the other thing that I like to do is another scale strategy is wealth workshops. So for me, I don't have to see them one-on-one for them to get amazing value. We can create these wealth workshops. Now, these wealth workshops, I like to do them virtually. You might be able to do them in person, but it's on topics that they care about. It is not, and no disrespect to any investment people in the room or any of our amazing sponsors, they do not care about an economic update. They want stuff like, how do I protect myself from online scams? Especially if I think some of these strategies are just not good for millennials. They're good for clients in general. If you've got retirees. And so they want to know that sort of stuff. They want to know, if I'm the power of attorney, what do I need to do? So if you've got parents, that would be a great topic that they'd want to know about for their kids. What do their kids need to be aware of with their power of attorney? What do they need to make sure they have in place now and know where it is? How to invest for grandchildren. Should I fix my home loan interest rate? What's also good about these wealth workshops is that how do I invest for my grandchildren? The whole stack of stuff that you can do at scale. What I love about these, especially if you do it virtually, you can record it. It can then become something that sits in the client portal or in a members area that they can have access to or new clients have access to. So it becomes valuable to them. It also means for you guys, you don't have to repeat yourself. I don't know about you, I get questions all the time about salary packaging your car. Should I No, I don't know anything about salary packaging. I do know, but it's not really my area to give advice. But I did a video with the accountant and now I send them that. Great question. Here's blah, blah, blah. Watch this short video. It goes into a lot of detail. If you've got more questions, we can, connect you with an accountant. So it helps to answer those frequently asked questions as well. So yeah, wealth workshops can be great and yeah, you can reuse them. Now I know what some of you are thinking. Oh my God, Adele, we've got 5,000 things to do. How are we ever going to get time to do this? This is so much stuff. The good news is there's so much AI now to make this ridiculously easy, so much easier than what it was 6 months ago. So you can have, there's video editing software like Descript. I think Descript is one of the easiest way to edit videos. It's like editing a Word doc. There's also a bunch of AI tools now. This I just created in Canva. Now there's definitely better ones out there. This was free, but I'll show you how quick it was for me to create a video. Hey advisor buddies, this is Adele's AI. Just stopping by to say hi. I hope you have an epic conference. So it's even going to become easier because we won't even need to say it. We'll just need, and you can create you could do more cartoony versions, or you could use someone else's face. You can use your voice, someone else's voice. You can have so much fun with these. Now, I personally think it should be you because that builds up that know, like, and trust factor. So I think it should be you. And if you've got multiple advisors in your business and you're worried about, what if this advisor takes the client, having yourself, as the face of these things, of the onboarding videos or of those wealth workshops, helps keep you as that authority figure as well if you do have multiple advisors. But yeah, it's so easy to do now. And the last thing that we need to do is we need to get social. So millennials will stalk you online. They'll want to know about you. They will Google you. They will look at your socials. The thing with socials is, and this sort of happened to me by accident, it's not just for new clients. Your existing clients, it's a way for you to stay connected with them between appointments. So I was having my existing clients come to meetings talking about videos that I've done and, when you said this thing, they felt like they were getting amazing value from watching my socials. And so don't discount socials as something just for new clients. It's also for an existing client retention as well. So how do we do socials well? Well, the first thing is we need to have a variety in our posts. So when I talk about variety, we don't just want technical how-to. Like people they don't want an economic update, something and this is the problem that I have sometimes with it is we've just got all that technical. We actually need to have a variety. They want to see days like today. The posts that often get the best engagement are pictures of you. They want to know what you're doing. They want the behind the scenes. One of the best ones I showed a tool that I used. I showed one of the tools of the financial modeling tools that we use. And I explained that, this client wanted to know about, maternity leave and what was going to be the impact if they worked part-time. And I showed this tool. So showing some of the tools, rather than keeping everything secretive and behind closed doors, let's show some of this stuff and have a variety in the posts that we do. Highlight a team member. Highlight a center of influence you're working with. Give a shout out to a client that's doing amazing things. The other thing that we need to do with socials is we need to have consistency. And so what I hear most sometimes is, I'm not getting any leads from my marketing. I'm just not getting enough clients. If we're not getting enough clients, it's simply because we're not consistent with our marketing, whatever marketing we choose to do. So if you're going to choose to do social, be consistent and don't try to master all of the platforms. Pick one platform where your ideal clients hang out. So for me, females in their 30s, 40s, they like Instagram. So picking one, being a master in that and being consistent. You don't have to post 2 times a day, every single day. Just be consistent. You're going to do 3 times a week, do 3 times a week. And the other thing is it should speak to your ideal client. And this is the problem I have with some of the content that's created by, say, our marketing departments and licensees. They've done it so it could apply to anyone. And when you have marketing that could speak to anyone, nobody hears it. And so it's like if you're at a concert and you're trying to yell no one's hearing you. But if you're whispering in someone's ear, then they can hear you. And that's what our marketing should do. It should be a whisper to our ideal clients. And so, because when we're doing that, we actually need to do less marketing. And with AI and all the, ChatGPT and stuff that's happening, you can't out content people. And so we have to make sure that we've got that we're speaking to our ideal client. And so, as an example, rather than talking about superannuation, I'm talking about how to boost your super when you're on maternity leave. And so think about your ideal clients. What can we do to make sure this content speaks to them? And the last thing we need to do is to be you. This is what I was just talking about. We can't out-content the AI. There's going to be so much content. There's only one of you. And so we need to, if you want to create that following, we need to have you. You need to stand for something. You need to stand for something, stand against something. You need to have the best person that does this. Does anyone know Gary Vee? Show of hands who knows Gary Vee. Yeah, so Gary Vee, if you know Gary Vee, he does this very well. He is he likes the word hustle. Words that are associated with hustle. He likes crush it. He likes the Jets. That's his favorite team. He has he hates the school system. He's all about, and so if you know him, you know his words, his language, the clothes that he uses. And so we want this stuff to be you, to have an opinion, to not sit on the fence. And yes, you're going to polarize some people, but if you don't do that, your content is so bland, it's just going to get lost. And so be you. Now, we've had the advisors that I'm working with have been using these strategies and across different platforms, Instagram, LinkedIn. And at first, I remember one of the advisors I was working with, Rochelle, she bought into an existing practice and she wanted to make sure that her business was not going backwards. She bought in with debt. If you bought into a business with debt, this is even more important to make sure you're growing. And I remember talking to her. She's like, I've never been on Instagram. I'm like, you've never been on Instagram? You're in your 30s. You've never been on Instagram. So I was shocked by that. But she's like, but she did it. The first post, and I was like, it could take a little while. First 2 posts, she's got clients, and she regularly gets leads every week from it. And so even if you don't have a big following, don't let that stop you. Following and numbers can just be a vanity thing. And so, she has a very small following and she's getting clients every week from it. And let's see this in action. So this is a client that I worked with, Alicia and Patrick. So this is one of my first clients when I started working with younger clients and millennials. When they first came to me, they had 2 small children. She was pregnant with her second child. She was very stressed. They had built up debt. They're about to go on less income. She was pregnant with a second baby, a whole heap of stuff. So they're very, very stressed. Now, what I did with them, I worked with them many, many years, and this is why they make great clients, because stuff keeps happening. 2014, they had their second baby. 2015, she hates a job. She wants to get out of it. How does she quit a corporate job? She wants to have another baby. The one now, and they need a bigger house. How are they going to afford to do that? She launched a business, and so helped to do that rather than, start with no employment. Let's test the water, do it 2 days a week. Let's do this as a side hustle and build it up and so that gave her business a chance. So helped her with that. And then I was able to have her on my podcast, The Saving Squad, as, a success story, which she loved. And then 2020, she started investing. And now at this stage, she's more interested in super, and they're asking about self-managed super fund. So all of a sudden, a client, which even in the first year, they were a 5K plus client from day one, and now we're adding all these other complexities. They're a 10K plus client now. And this is not a, once-off thing. This is repeated with millennials because they have these issues that keep going. So the next step is, what I want to leave you with today is that, a lot of advisors think they need those high net worth clients. But I'm here to tell you that high net worth clients can be a pain in the ass. They're, demanding. They've got, they're linked to their accountant. They see their accountant as their main advisor, not you guys. And then the accountant starts to question, geez, your fees are high compared to what they're charging. So they start to get in the ear about that. And then you're all of a sudden not their holistic advisor doing everything. You're just limited to the product, to super or investment. And so if you want to be that, holistic advisor, and what you really need is more of those 10K clients, more of those clients like Alicia and Patrick. Cool. We're at time, but thank you.
And we're back. I'm here with Aaron Dunn again, and we're going to give a little bit of a wrap up of what we spoke about in the first half of the podcast. So Aaron, what do you think was the biggest story from the week?
Well, for me, I think that draft ruling with the CGT and the NALI is quite interesting because it seems to be the gift that keeps on giving, the NALI rules. So we haven't really seen anything settle in this space. Obviously, we've seen the ATO initial review on this or ruling in respect to the issue. We've seen the government respond to that. We've seen the former government respond to it. We've seen the current government respond to it. We're about to see law. The ATO will then need to update some of their guidance in that. And then we've seen a draft determination that the industry has already taken to task on. So I go back to it's the gift that keeps on giving in that regard. And some point we will get this topic settled, and hopefully not in its current form on all fronts, because the industry, I guess, has expressed its displeasure for some period of time. But getting some certainty on it to at least let the industry move forward would be good.
Realistically, it's all anyone who, advises someone, or accountants who work with tax and things like that. It's really all anyone wants is they just want to know what the rule is so that they can work from that.
Yeah, correct. So, and Keith, for you, I guess I know at the SMSF Adviser channels are being bombarded around the ASIC levy. Would that be a fair comment?
Absolutely. It's certainly been the one that's gotten the most impassioned response from the SMSF Adviser readership and also the IFA readership as well. It affects all types of advisors. And no one's happy about it, really, is the bottom line. No one's enjoying that. No one wants to get slugged with just a massive increase. It's almost like the people that are going to be coming off their fixed rate mortgages, having that mortgage cliff that they've not expected when they've fixed the mortgage. And probably around this time of year is when most of those fixed mortgages were expected to come off. And it really is it's like that cliff. You've had the freeze and then it jumps up exponentially and you're just like, oh, we did not expect this.
Yeah. Yep. Yeah, that's a very good analogy. Very good analogy.
And so I guess the last little quick bit of business, we just want to give a reminder to everyone about voting in the SMSF Adviser Awards. So they opened recently, I think only a couple of days ago. I think actually possibly yesterday they opened. But they are open for voting until the close of business on Friday, 21 July. So if you want to be heard and give your opinion on the SMSF Adviser Awards, you've got to go to smsfadviser.com and have a look and vote for yourself and hopefully make a bit of an impact on who wins these awards.
Yeah, and I think it's a really highly regarded award in the industry, and obviously it goes from various providers in the industry covering administration, software, document providers, education, cash accounts, and the like. And it's been going for a long period of time, and the more that people support those service providers that they use within the industry, like I said, I encourage people to obviously complete that. And like I said, from providers like myself, it is very highly regarded to be recognised for the work that gets put in. So again, I encourage everyone to do so. So I guess, Keith, as we wrap up, if anyone has any suggestions for topics, speakers and the like, how can they get in contact with us?
Yes, they can contact us at editor@smsfadvisoronline.com.au, and they can send anything that they want to get off their chest straight to us.
Excellent. Well, thank you, everyone, for joining us for this edition of the SMSF Adviser Show. I hope you have a great rest of the week. Take care and bye for now.
The information featured in this podcast is general in nature and does not take into consideration your financial situation or individual needs and should not be relied upon. Before making any investment, insurance, tax, property or financial planning decision, you should consult a licensed professional who can advise whether your decision is appropriate for you. Guests appearing on this podcast may have a commercial relationship with the companies mentioned.
Are you an SMSF advisor struggling to keep up to date amid the ever-evolving Australian superannuation industry? Join us at the SMSF Adviser Technical Strategy Day 2023 in Sydney, Brisbane or Melbourne this October to discover revolutionary tools, insights and market intelligence that'll help you dominate in the year ahead and beyond. Take part in interactive discussions with specialist speakers on SMSF regulation and compliance, investment strategies, tax planning, estate planning, retirement planning and more. Network with SMSF leaders, your fellow peers, and earn CPD accreditation to further your professional development. Visit smsfstrategyday.com.au to learn more about the event, our specialist speakers, and to secure your ticket.